Hey everyone, welcome back to SEL. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at all of the engines in my collection. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start with conventional and then work our way to command. As you see here, I have all my command engines here. I'm going to do my best to show them in the order that I got them, but I've had some of these conventional engines in my collection for so long, I really don't remember when exactly they came in because I've been collecting for my entire life. And I really just don't remember, as far as the conventional engines go, what order they came in. But for the command engines, I do remember that because I had that all in my notes. But with all that being said, let's get started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the engine right here that I'm talking about, and if it's a conventional style engine, it'll just have a still image of it on the track as I'm talking about it. But if it's a command style engine, I'll just have it going past us on the camera on the layout. But what I'll do is I'll start with my conventional style engines to the best of my memory. I'll do it in order of acquisition. And then when we get to the command style engines, I do have notes on when I got those, so those will be in order of acquisition. All right, guys, so this is the one that started it all. This is my Lionel 726 Berkshire. This is an inherited gift that I got from my grandfather on my mom's side, my late grandfather. And I think I got it when I was around 10-ish years old. And like I said, it was my very first O-scale, 3-rail O-scale engine. And I've had it in my collection for a long time now. And I don't exactly remember which variation this is, but I do have it in my notes, and I'll put it right here on the screen, which variation this is. But because this is a post-war and a conventional style engine, it really doesn't get run a whole lot around the layout. But it does have a whole lot of sentimental value to me because it is from my grandfather. All right, guys, so I believe this is the second oldest member of my collection. This is a Lionel Polar Express. Now, again, this is a conventional style engine, and I believe it was the first version they offered. I could be wrong about that. I have to double check my notes and the box that it came in, but I do believe this is the first version Lionel offered, and it did come with the 3 coaches, and I actually was able to collect over the years through Christmas gifts from my parents another 4 cars, so I do have a pretty decent train to go behind this one. Now, you know, as us kids, when we're growing up, we're not exactly careful with things. So this one's a bit fried on the inside. I did try and fix it, but again, that was young me, and I didn't really exactly know what I was doing. If I went around to trying doing it now, I could probably fix it if I really wanted to. But because my layout is now more of a command style layout, it's really not a high priority. I do want a command scale Polar Express at some point with all the cars, and I know Lionel just offered that in their last round of catalogs, a couple catalogs ago. But I'll have to wait until I can get the engine and then get all the cars to go with it, because I don't remember Lionel offering all of the cars. Maybe I'm wrong, but it was just not the right time for me to get a scale Polar Express, which I'm sure my time will come at some point in the future. All right, so moving on to number 3 in the collection. This is a Lionel 040 switcher, and this was a gift from a extended family member, if I remember correctly. I was watching his house, and I was getting his mail and things like that, and he gave me this and as a gift. Now, I believe at the time he either knew someone who worked for Georgia Power, or maybe he worked for Georgia Power himself, I don't exactly remember. But this is a Georgia Power branded engine, and it came in a set. Now, I do have the caboose that goes with this engine. I did not originally get the whole set. It was just the engine. But at some point, I would like to collect the whole entire Georgia Power set. Now, it's not a Georgia Power engine. It's a Tallulah Falls Railroad engine. But it does have, and I'll put a picture of it here as I'm talking about it, there's a little decal on the side here inside the cab that has Georgia Power marked on it. And I believe all the cars have Georgia Power on them. But yes, at some point I would like to get the entire set for this just so I can have it be a display piece on a shelf at some point in the future. But it's a kind of little unique little piece to the collection that's kind of local to my area. So moving on to my first diesel in the collection, this is a Lionel, I believe, GP40 or GP20. I don't exactly remember. I'll have to put it here in a second because I know what engine it was originally. This was a Lionel 6110 New York Central engine. But I bought it with the express idea of repainting it to look like my grandfather's engine. Now, if you've seen I drove a train kinda, or he built a train kinda, this engine is made to look like my grandfather's engine. And I got it because I just wanted to have his engine on my layout, and I thought it'd be really cool. So not only is this the first engine I bought with my own money, it's also meant to replicate my grandfather's engine. So it has a lot of sentimental value to me. All right, moving on to diesel number 2. This is a Lionel Postwar 623. Now you may say, it doesn't look like a Postwar one. Well, it's because when I bought it, it had already been repainted into a Southern, I believe it was, I have to pull the picture up to remember, 2202, and it was in kind of rough shape when I got it. Southern was spelled out on the right way on one side, but it was misspelled on the other. So when I bought it, I knew it was gonna need some freshening up. So we decided to make it look like a CSX switcher, because CSX and Norfolk Southern run a lot around here. But I did give it back its original number, and I tried to put some more modern details on there that you would see on normal command and conventional style engines that we see today. Like I put the F marker here on the front. I have CXX Atlanta Division. I have number boards on there. Things you would see on today's command and conventional style engines, but maybe not necessarily of when these were originally made. So moving on to this engine, this is a Williams turbine that I got at the Savannah Train Show that's hosted by the Coastal Rail Buffs, which is a club that I'm a part of. Now, at the time that I got these 3 engines, I was not part of the club. I am now. I've been in the club for a year and a half-ish, maybe 2, I think maybe close to 2 years. And no, yeah, a year. And when I got it, I thought it worked, and it didn't. So that was a little bit disappointing whenever I got home and it didn't run. But in the future, and you'll see later on in this video, I did actually get a running turbine. But I bet now if I cracked it open, I could probably figure out what's wrong with it. But again, because now my layout is a command style layout, it's really not a high priority to look into the conventional engines that I have and fix issues with them when I could just get a command style engine. Not to say that I don't ever want to try and figure these things out, but it's just not a high priority. All right, moving on to my first MTH item in the collection. This is a MTH Rail King Burlington Zephyr set that I actually got as a gift from a friend. Now, this was when I was in college. I was actually in college when I got this. So we were helping a buddy move, and on top of, messing with him and just having a bunch of fun all day, he offered to pay us to help him move all this stuff. But instead of giving me money, he gave me a train set instead. So this was actually his dad's, and I believe he told his dad how much I've been into trains and how long I've been collecting. And I guess he was just wanting to give his collection to someone he knew would use it and stuff like that. So this was just the first thing that I got from that collection, and we'll move on to some of the other things in that collection as the video goes on. And you've actually seen some of his stuff as far as buildings go on from his collection for quite a while now. The station that's on the layout is from his collection. The the Ferris wheels from his collection. The merry-go-round is on his collection, as well as many other buildings that you see on my layout. All right, moving on. This is a MTH Rail King Santa Fe 605. Now, I'm not exactly sure when this one was cataloged, and I'll look it up and I'll put it in the video here. But this was another gift from a friend's collection that just wasn't getting used anymore, and it went to me because I believe it was a another case of helping a friend move. And it did come with one or couple of cars. And again, I'm just thankful for all the friends who I have made over the years, and just they give me the stuff that they're maybe family members or they themselves don't use anymore. So this is the last post-war style engine that I have in my collection. This is a Lionel 671 turbine, another gift from a friend I was helping move. I had kind of weird that that happened twice, but I really am thankful for the family and friends that I have that give me this stuff, even if it means giving their stuff from their father or other family members to me instead of holding on to them for their own sentimental value. But it does mean a lot to me that they're giving it to me, so that way it's in a collection of someone who I guess will appreciate the train for it being a train. But it does mean a lot to me that they think of me that much, say, hey, I'd rather you have this. But I actually did have the opportunity to, and I haven't really talked about this on the channel before, but a long time ago, I restored a post-war set from a family friend, and his plan was for me to just keep the set and it'd be part of my collection, but I kind of surprised them with it, and I fixed it, and I boxed it back up, made a new box for it, and I gave it back to him, because the whole reason I'm into trains to begin with is because my grandfather gave me his set when I was around 10, 12-ish, and I wanted him to have that opportunity to give it to his grandkids. So again, the whole reason I'm into this stuff is because of family, and I wanted to give him that opportunity to kind of be that inspiration to his grandkids too. So this is the last conventional style engine that I have in my collection. This is a MarkX 999 New York Central 242. And this actually belonged to my grandfather on my dad's side. Now I still have my grandfather on my dad's side. My grandfather on my mom's side passed away when I was really young, which is why I got my engine from him a little earlier on. Now, like I said, I still have my grandfather from my dad, and they gave this engine to me a couple of years ago, and they just wanted to give it to me ahead of time. But like I said, I really enjoy having all these really sentimental pieces in my collection. It kind of makes me want to just hold on to all the conventional style stuff that I can't run anymore, so that way I can pass them down to my kids whenever I have a family, so that way they can have the same familial connection to trains just like I do. All right, so now we're moving on to the command style engines that I have in my collection. This is a Lionel LionChief Plus 2.0 Berkshire, and this is actually technically the first command style engine that I bought for my collection. Now it's not quite scale, so I don't really count it as my first scale engine, but it is, and I don't really count it as my first command style engine either. Because while it does have TMCC on board, I bought it because, I just wanted something a little more modern in my collection, and I bought it around, I believe it was 2022 into 2022. And I have actually modified it a little bit. It's kind of hard to see here in this picture, but I will have it here obviously because I'll be able to run it. I blackened the drivers on this one, and that was a modification I made, I believe, at the end of 23, maybe beginning of 24. I don't exactly remember. 23 sounds right. But I wanted something a little more modern that I could run, have, modern lights, a fan-driven smoke unit. I wanted something a little more modern before I fully jumped into command control, because I really couldn't do all that on my current layout. And this, I don't know if this is exactly the engine that inspired the rebuild of my layout, but I certainly knew I wanted to at some point be able to run command style engines, because I grew up watching the Eric Siegels and all that kind of stuff like that. I kind of at some point knew I wanted to run full command engines, and this was kind of a good stepping stone for going from conventional to command. So if you're like me and you're kind of wanting to move from one aspect of the hobby to the other, starting with these Lionel LionChief 2.0 engines, or maybe some Rail King engines, it's a really good starting point to go from one aspect of the hobby up to the next level. All right, guys, so this is another very special engine in my collection. This is a Lionel 280 Consolidation, And again, it really kind of needs no introduction. This is my custom Southern Eagle Lines 280. Now this engine started out as a Mr. Muffin's Trains custom unlettered 280. And I think I probably went over this in my original video when I did on these. And if I've done a video on any of these engines, I'll put it in the description down below. I think I've done too many for it to have a video up here in one of these two corners. But right around 2021-ish, I wanted to start. I always kind of wanted to do a custom train with my own stuff on it. So right around 2021 was when I started wanting to move from command to, or from conventional to command. So I found, or Atlas had just recently announced their acquisition of some of the MTH toolings, and their first run of stuff was going to be the Premier Heavyweights. So I ordered some of those, and I thought, okay, well, at some point I'm going to need an engine to pull it. So Lionel had done their catalog and had announced these, and I really hadn't thought about getting too much from that catalog, if anything. But as you do, as we all do, we're browsing websites, we're browsing trains, Mr. Muffins, things like that. And I looked down his custom runs, and I found this, the unlettered 280s. So I thought, well, that's perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for at the time. You know, unlettereds are really kind of hard to come across, and I didn't really think about people doing custom runs of it. I didn't even know custom runs were a thing before I found this thing. So now that I'm much more versed in the hobby and when it comes to conventional and command and how the hobby stores actually work, I'm much more in tune with finding these things. At some point, I do want to get, another SEL engine, and I have my next SEL engine, so we'll have to take a look at that here in a minute. But at some point, I do want to have a full, fleet of SEL stuff and Central Georgia stuff too, but we'll get to that in a second too. All right, so I'm going to bend my own rules here a little bit, just kind of speed things up here just a bit. These are two MTH Rail King SW1500s. I've had the black Norfolk Southern 2227 in my collection for a little bit. I believe it was actually the second or third fully command engine that I bought in my collection. Had it for a while. My whole plan was to make it look like this River Straight Rambler one that I have here. But I actually found this one at York last year in October. And I do plan on going to October York this year. So if you're there, kind of keep an eye out there for me. But now that I have this engine, I don't need to repaint this one. Now, I might still repaint it at some point. I think it'd be kind of cool to have a Southern Eagle Lines switcher. But again, since my whole plan was to repaint this one to this one, I kind of don't need to do that anymore. So maybe if someone does an unlettered one, I'll just start there and use that one. But it's not entirely out of the question that this one will receive a Southern Eagle Lines scheme maybe at some point in the future. All right, so moving on to the first Central Georgia engine I had in my collection. This is a Lionel Legacy H15. Now Lionel offered two of these, number 102 and 101. I bought number 102. At some point, I would like to get number 101. I have seen it offered in one or two places. Maybe if I find one at York this year, I'll bring it home with me. But I would like in the future to have as many Central Georgia engines in my collection as possible. And I'd like to have two numbers of each. So we're gonna eventually see two more Central Georgia engines that I was lucky enough off the bat to get two of. But yes, at some point I would like to have as many Central Georgia representation, or as much representation as I can. So moving on to the next engine in the collection here. This is an Atlas PS3 P42. So this is one of the first engines Atlas did after their acquisition of MTH. I don't remember if it was the very first one or if it was one of the first, but it was first for my collection. So I bought this one because I like the paint scheme, and at some point I would like to get some more, normal Amtrak power in my collection. And I do want to do the Palmetto at some point, because Palmetto is the one that kind of starts out in Savannah and goes all the way up to New York. And I've now actually been on the Palmetto. I took it to York, and I'll also link in the video down below. And since this one's a single video, I'll put it in up here in the corners. I did the video on our trip on the Palmetto. So if you're interested in what it looks like to actually ride the Palmetto and Amtrak itself, take a look at that video. So this is my first MTH steam engine. Well, technically second, but this is my first premier steam engine. This is a 4-truck Shay, and this is actually lettered for the Backyard Lumber Company. Now, Backyard Lumber Company was not one that MTH offered, but they did offer unlettereds. So unlettereds are kind of a favorite of mine. They're almost like a kryptonite. But Backyard Lumber Company is a name of my uncle's kind of side business. He has a small little mill in his backyard that's like one of those small little ones you can buy and build in your backyard. But I thought it'd be kind of cool to have a representation of that on my layout, and I got this engine. I got the 6-pack of unlettered skeleton cars. So at some point I do want to get a caboose and letter it up for that, maybe one of the little bobber cabooses, but we'll have to see what I can get a hold of. All right, so moving on. This is a Lionel Lion Norfolk Southern SD80 Mac. Now again, I got this from the Savannah train show, and I was trying to find some more, this was at some point I knew I was getting into scale and command and things like that. Now I know the Lion Masters aren't exactly true to scale, but I wanted some more modern power, more scale, modern power. And this was the closest thing they really had at the show, and a price point where I was wanting to kind of spend. They didn't really, there's not a whole lot in terms of full command at that show, but it's still a nice engine. I run it every now and then. It is TMCC, so when I run it, I kind of have to run it by itself. I can't run it with my other scale engines, as we'll see here in a minute. But it's still a nice engine, and I'm glad it's part of the collection. All right, so moving on. This is the Lionel Legacy Dreyfuss Hudson, and I got it as well as 6 of the 8 20th Century Limited passenger cars. I chose this one because I really like the skull and disc drivers, and I like the blue striping, and I just wanted it to kind of match the set. This engine was the engine on the page with our 20th Century cars. At some point, I would like to locate the other 2 passenger cars so I have the whole set, and they're kind of challenging to find. I think I saw maybe one set on trains. I think when RBP sold some of his collection, I think he might have had some on there, but at some point I would like to have the other 2 cars so that way I have the whole set. But I don't get to run this engine as much as I would really like to, because for some reason it doesn't like my outer curves, even though I've seen some people say this engine can do 060, 064, and I've seen it do that because it runs fine on my 060 fast track, but not my 064 Ross track. Maybe it's because my layout is really meant to be a temporary layout, and it's not, secure. Like, it's not drilled down to the table. Maybe it's because it's not set up quite properly. But whenever I do have my full layout in my new house, whenever that gets built and I have a minimum of like 080 curves, this thing will run just fine, and it'll finally be able to run it like it's supposed to. All right, so I'm going to kind of cut down on time a little bit here again. The next 6 will kind of be like this because I have duplicates here now. So these are 2 Lionel Legacy SD70s. I first got the New York Central SD70 because I got the Dreyfuss Hudson, and I kind of wanted to start building my NS Heritage collection. So I thought, I'll just get this one because I just got the 20th Century, and I think it'd be kind of cool to have, the engine or commemorating New York Central and still have it pull the set. And I actually did do that in my review of this engine. So if you're interested, check out the video down below. And this is the Savannah Atlanta SD70, and I kind of, had to get that one because, I'm around Savannah, and it's another Georgia unit, so kind of had to get my hands on this one. And I did also do a video on this one, which will also be in the video in the description down below. All right, so this is a pair of Lionel's most recent run of ES44s. One in the NS Central Georgia paint scheme and one in the CSX B&O paint scheme. Now, for obvious reasons, I chose the Central Georgia one because whenever Lionel first announced they were rerunning the NS Heritage fleet, I was super excited to finally get my hands on a modern diesel and, a Central Georgia engine. But I chose the CSX V&O unit because I've actually seen the V&O unit. At some point, I would love to see the Central Georgia unit, but it passed where I work, and I've actually seen quite a few of these CSX units that way. So at some point, I would like to get all the engines, that I've actually seen. I've seen the B&O unit, I've seen the Western Maryland unit, and I've seen the RF&P unit. Now, I know Lionel did just announce those units, and I'm gonna wait until they come in. I've kind of heard that this one isn't exactly accurate to light. The paint's not quite right, but at some point I will probably add the other two Lionel ones to my collection because I have the Lionel one here. I want to be able to run them all together. But at some point I will add those two in the collection, so look out for that video in the future. All right, so moving on to the last two, really three engines that I have in my collection. These are a pair of Central Georgia E7s that are made by Third Rail. And I bought these because I kind of knew that if I didn't, I would probably never see them offered again by really anyone, unless it's by a custom run. Now, my plan for these is to convert them from TMCC to either Legacy or PS3. It'll depend on how I want to do the cars. That'll determine which one I do. And I'm not going to talk about that a whole lot because I've got some ideas for the cars in terms of sounds and things like that. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. But again, I knew if I didn't get a pair of these, for one, I would regret it. And two, I wanted to be able to run the Nancy Kanks on one and the Man of War on the other. And I did say I got three of these. So underneath my layout, and I'm keeping it boxed up for a reason, I have an unpainted one of these E7s, which will be my second Southern Eagle Lines unit. And I do have a paint scheme for it in mind. So at some point, whenever I'm ready, I'm kind of waiting until I have all the materials ready to do it, so that way I can kind of do it all in one shot. So that way I don't have it, screwing up or things like that. Paint's getting chipped and letters falling off. I just want to make sure that whenever I do get around to doing it, I can do it all in one shot and it comes out a whole lot nicer. I like the Shay, it came out great, but there are some things that I would rather change, and now that I've done one engine, I know to kind of do it all in one go. So that way nothing can, gets messed up in the process or things fall off. But and once I get the cars done for these, I have an idea of what I want to do for the cars. I found some kits for these cars. No one makes the cars that I need for these, so I can just modify them. So I think it'll be a little more fun to, build them like from scratch myself. So that way, really both sets feel a little more personal to myself. And if I like them, they'll be what I build for my custom E7. So again, if you're interested in any of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Facebook, so that way you kind of stay up to date on those kinds of projects. So this is the final and most recent addition to my collection. This is the Lionel Legacy F19 Pacific. This is the first Pacific that I have in the collection, the first engine to have the Ashpan glow effect, the first one that has a Vanderbilt tender. A lot of firsts with this engine. So I really like this engine. It's a really great smoker. The whistle steam smoke effect is probably one of the best in the collection. And I really like how different it is than any of my other steam engines in the collection. Now, I say final, but I have a lot more coming this year, so make sure you look out for all the new engines that are being added to the collection. And if you guys like this video, I might do an update video at the end of the year, and maybe I'll make this a yearly video, maybe at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, kind of like a state of the collection kind of thing. But so that about wrap it up for this one, guys. If you like the video, please like it, leave a comment down below if you haven't already, subscribe. And I hope that you guys enjoyed watching how I built my collection over time. So that'll about wrap it up for this one, guys. I hope you guys kind of enjoyed how I built my collection over the years and how I will continue to build it. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, like the video, leave a comment down below. Let me know, guys, what you think about these engines that I have in my collection. Let me know what I should add to the collection. But with all that being said, I'll see you guys next week.